Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Hope your week has gotten off to a good start. I know for those of us who are Stampin' Up! Demonstrators, today was a big day because today we got to register for Stampin' Up's 30th year on stage in Orlando. So I'm very excited about that and so happy that I was able to get in on the registration. But enough about that. Hi, Jean. Hi, Roz. Welcome, welcome. Glad to have you ladies on with me. So what are we going to do today? Well, if you read my quick little post I did about 30 minutes ago, we're going to make another card using the Petal Promenade DSP and the First Frost stamp set. I just can't get enough of them. I love the two together. We're going to do a bit of a different one tonight, though. Before we get started on that, this is the card that we made last Tuesday. And then I put this one together yesterday or the day before. I belong to a swap group, and this month is all about babies. So a little wild stamp set came in really handy for this. And I knew that I wanted to do a feminine card. So how do you make a hippo feminine? Well, you surround it with pink and flowers, of course. But the reason I have these out here is you'll probably notice a little theme going on. See how we've got center panels on both of these? Yep, I am hung up on this layout. I'm just really liking the way that center panel draws your eye in and really focuses it. So we're going to use that same type of layout, but, and the reason I wanted to do that is I want to show you that just because you're using the same layout doesn't mean you're going to get the same card. They don't have to look matchy-matchy. So let's take these away and talk about what we're going to be doing. Now, if you've gotten that Petal Promenade DSP, you know how gorgeous that paper is. All those roses, beautiful. But I really fell in love with this very natural looking wreaths or vines and flowers. And we've got rectangular shapes, and then we've also got round wreath shapes. And I used this beautiful, beautiful border piece on that baby hippo card. It was perfect to back that center panel. But we're not going to use that today as much as I wanted to use it again. We are instead going to concentrate on using one of these wreaths. And I could have just cut out a square and mounted it, but I wanted to maintain that circular shape. I really didn't want to have to do a lot of fussy cutting though. So let me show you what I did. Bring in our goodie bag here. Get out all the makings. But what I did was I used one of our layering circles. I think it's the largest one. It's either the largest or the second to the largest. And it worked well for preserving not only the shape of the wreath, but almost all of the vines and the flowers. So I cut that out. That's what we're going to use. And for other pieces, I am in love with swirls, curls and swirls, or swirls and curls. I can never remember which comes first. Embossing folder. So I definitely wanted to use that as well. And I, ahead of time, cut out all of the pieces just to save us some time. So we have, oh, here it is. A Whisper White card base that is 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. And I wanted to keep the white predominant, but I did want a little bit of definition. And one of the things I was noticing, I tried and tried and tried to use these with all kinds of different colors. And I really wanted to do a white on white card, but you'll notice that the center of my wreath is not white. And so it kept throwing me off. I was just not happy with how it was looking. Well, self, I said, why not try it with a little bit of Smoky Slate? And this made me absolutely fall in love. And let me show you what I mean. So I went ahead and embossed a piece of Whisper White with the swirls and curls. We are going to mat it with that Smoky Slate, but just a thin, thin, thin border showing. And what you'll see when I put this together is that was enough. It brought in enough of the gray that now I was happy with that. It all comes together. But I didn't want to just put it on there plainly. I wanted to bring out a little bit of color. So Blushing Bride is one of the coordinating colors for that DSP. I cut a strip of that because it will go well with the flowers. But again, just wasn't quite doing it for me. So this is kind of my thought process. I didn't want to pull in any more of that Smoky Slate because it was really darkening it up too much. So what can we use besides that? Hello, how about a little bit of shiny silver foil? Again, I'm just going to have a thin border, but watch what happens when I put it all together. That I really liked. So it had that little pop of color that helps bring out the roses. It's got the gray matte to make me happy with the center of the wreath. And that's also where I'll be stamping the sentiment. So let's start putting this together. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and glue down my embossed panel to my mat. And I'm just going to use some liquid glue to do that. I'm not going to pop that part up, although that would create some interesting shadows, probably if you did. And because this is one of our dynamic embossing folders, I'm going to make sure I use a goodly amount of glue to get decent coverage. And again, I just want, oh, got a little too much glue there. I just want the thinnest border. So let's see if I can line this up well. Sticking to me and not the mat. That's what happens when you get glue all over your fingers. And then I'm going to give it a good press and hold it down for just a couple of seconds, making sure it's got good contact all the way through. Last thing you want after you get this put together is for that to start popping loose. And I'm going to go ahead and glue this down to my card base. So far, easy breezy. Tell you what, designing these always takes me a lot longer than actually putting them together. I used to try and just sit at my craft table and make ideas come. Sometimes that works, but I tell you, the creative process can be a fleeting thing. Everybody else was using card layout sketches, so I thought, what the heck? Let me see if that will stir the old noggin, get the creative juices flowing. And sure enough, as you can see, 3 cards came from looking at one layout. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is mat my strip of Blushing Bride. And I'll bet you guys would like to know what the measurements of these are, right? I gave you the card base measurement. The embossed panel is 1/4 inch shorter and narrower. So it's 4 inches by 5 1/4. And my Smoky Slate mat is, oh my gosh, let me see if I can get this right. It is 4 3/16, I think, across. And then it is 5 let's see, 1/4 would be, I'm so bad at math. Again, I think that's 5 3/16. So I'm just leaving a very, very narrow border all the way around. My silver piece is going to match my embossed panel. So that's pretty easy. We know that that one is 5¼ inches long. As far as wide, and here again, I think it's going to be the 16ths. Let me just go ahead and do the Blushing Bride first. That's 1¼ inch by 5¼ inch. And so I made the silver be just a little bit wider. It's the same length, but the width of this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like 6/16 maybe. But you'll be able to tell. Oh, there must be somebody out front. You can hear Miss Winnie barking. She is the best watchdog. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this down. That's okay, Winnie. It's all right, honey. All righty. And this one I'm going to be careful because if I get that glue all over it, it's going to show. So there we go. Winnie, come here, baby. Come here, good girl. Okay, now I couldn't decide at first if I wanted to glue this straight down or if I wanted to pop it up. And I think I'm going to go ahead and pop it up. I do want to give it a little more visual interest. So I'll get out my dimensionals here. Put some in each of my corners. That's a good girl, baby. Yeah, keeping mommy safe from that nasty lawnmower. Somebody's out mowing their lawn. All right. So if I put that there, you can see how it adds just that little bit of shadow, really gives it some good definition. So I'll peel the backings off. And as you can see, this card is going together really, really quickly. Roz, you haven't gotten through to register yet. I know that they said that registration was still open the last time I checked. I know everybody said, oh, don't use Chrome, use Firefox. So I downloaded Firefox this morning and went to use it. And that, you know how you get that page loading circle? Man, it just spun and spun and spun and spun. So I switched back over to my Chrome, was able to get right in. All right, so I've got that popped up. Now, this is going to go right on top. But before we do that, we need to stamp our sentiment. I brought my Stamparatus in because I want to make sure that if I don't get a good solid impression the first time, that I can go back and stamp it and it's going to be in exactly the right spot. So our Stamparatus is good for that. Oops. If I get this in the right spot. Come on, Linda. I should have marked on here where I had it. But the more I use this Stamparatus, the more I am liking it, especially for things like this. Almost got it. And you'll notice that I've got my flowers going off to the left. When I make wreaths for the house, I typically will do that rather than having all the flowers at the bottom. I like that visual interest. Okay, so I've got it in the right spot finally. I'm going to use Smoky Slate, keeping with the theme. I could have used Blushing Bride, but I just didn't want it to compete with the pop of color that the strip gives. So I'm going to my old standby of Smoky Slate. It's a very silvery looking ink, and it will go really well with this. And as you can see, a little bit blotchy. I think I need to re-ink my pad here. So I'm just going to ink it up again. And that's the beauty of the Stamparatus. I know it's going to stamp in exactly the same spot. All right, let's see how we did. Perfect. And you can see that that adds just the right amount of depth or darkness on top of that slightly grayscale background. So we've got that done. And I'll come back and clean that in a little bit. And here, because I have that center panel popped up, I need to pop up, if I can pop up the whole thing by doubling up on the dimensionals, or I can glue the center part straight down onto that color panel and just use dimensionals along the edges. And I hadn't, again, quite decided. I really like it popped up though. I think I'm going to pop the whole thing up. What that means is I'm going to use single dimensionals in the middle, double dimensionals on each side. Make sure that I've got it going the right way. For some things, there's just no substitute for popping it up. So I've got my singles going down the center. I'm going to do one more in the middle just for good measure. So that will sit like that. And then I'll put the doubles. Ooh, better close up my ink pad before I drag my fingers through it. Now, how do you double the dimensionals? Somebody asked me once. Well, that's a good question. You put your singles down first. And I'm very liberal with my dimensionals. And I want this popping up. Okay. Now, I'm not going to peel the backings off the middle ones just yet. That way I can keep them straight. But I'll peel the ones off the sides. Maybe. Come on. And then, because you've got that sticky back there, now I can take and lay another dimensional right on top of it. That's how you double up on your dimensionals. I used to use Fun Foam when I first started crafting, but it's really hard to get this effect with the Fun Foam because you have to cut it up too much. Okay, now let me make sure I'm getting these three are the ones I want to double up on. So peel off the backings. If you ever have backings that don't want to come off, just press your thumbnail down in the center, and that helps to pop them up. I have a funny story to tell you about using my embossing mat, or when I was embossing that panel. I always forget that you're supposed to switch out your magnetic plate for your standard plate. And did I get 3 on there? I'm missing one. So I had my magnetic plate in there, and I went to run it through, and it was like, man, you know, it's in there pretty tight. And then I figured out that it's because I hadn't switched them out. Well, I was in the other room and didn't want to have to get up and go all the way into the other into my craft room and get it. So what I ended up doing was taking the gray embossing mat that came with our new set of embossing mats, switching out one of the hard plates for that. And you know what? It worked perfectly. All right, now I'm going to take off the backing from the center ones. I always like to save those for last though, because that way, like I said, I will get them mixed up if I don't do that. Don't want to put doubles in the middle. Come on. As you can see, this is the laborious part of it. Making sure I get all the backings peeled off. Huh? Got that, and that one. Okay, now we're good to go. Pull out my reverse tweezers here because my big fat fingers will get in the way. Make sure I have this straight and decide where I want it. And I'm thinking right about there looks good. So we'll just lay that down. Oop. Oops, gently, she said. That way I can readjust it, but it looks good. I press the center down first, then I do the sides. And the sides, none of this ones on the side are encroaching on that center panel, so it's popped up perfectly. Just like that. Now I did decide it needed a little something extra, just a little. So I made a bow using our Petal Pink metallic ribbon. Love this stuff. And I know I use Blushing Bride for my pop of color, but the Petal Pink I think works with it very well. So to attach that, I am just going to pull out my glue dots. I tied it off camera because you guys, it's painful watching me try to tie a bow sometimes. Okay. And we'll just position that right about there. All right. I'm liking it. But we've got one more thing to do. I don't know if I've been doing this consistently, but we need an inside sentiment. Now, I could, since this is white on white, I could just stamp straight onto the card base, but it's pretty thick. And anytime you have layers like that, your back can feel kind of weak. So I just went ahead and cut another piece that's 4 inches by 5 1/4 that we're going to put on the inside. I'm not going to mat this one, but we'll use this for our sentiment. And I'm going to go back to the first frost. And the sentiment I'm going to use is wishing you all the best. I think it goes well with the sentiment that's on the front. And then I wanted a little bit of detail. So I'm going to take this, if I can get it out, this branchy image. Boy, there's a technical term for you. And use that. And I'm going to come back to my Smoky Slate. Let me mount this up. Now for this, I really don't feel the need to use the Stamparatus because I'm going to stamp this off anyway. I just need a very faint image. Thought I had some paper to stamp off on. Well, whamp, as my grandfather used to say, whamp, that could be a problem. No worries. I'll just take an old envelope and use it. That'll work. Any port in a storm, right? Oh, wow, that's pretty light anyway. Maybe I don't want to stamp off. Let's just do it full strength. So, and I'm going to have it come off of the inside sentiment panel, just down and to the right. Just like that. Very pretty. Just a little bit of color, or in this case, a little bit of shading. All right, now I'm going to bring my Stamparatus back in because the sentiment, as I said, I may need to ink it up more than once. Since I wanted the branchy image to be almost like a watercolor wash, I was fine with it not stamping perfectly. But for this, I definitely want a good stamped image. And I haven't cleaned off that other stamp, but no worries. I'm just going to flip this over and make sure I have this in there correctly. Come here, you. I need to get my, pull this back up. There we go. I always try to use the lines on my grid paper because I don't see straight for some reason. I see in circles. All right, so I'm just going to line that up. Check my placement. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. And incorrect. Okay, let's see if I got it lined up straight. Hey, not bad. And actually, that stamped really well, so I don't have to go over it a second time. Woo! Pull this out. And now we're just going to go ahead and use some liquid glue to attach it to the inside. And you certainly could stamp all kinds of sentiments on the front to make it a card that you could use at any time of the year. And there we go. So hey, in only about 20 minutes, we've made a really pretty card. And it really didn't take a lot of materials either. I used more Whisper White than anything else. So a little bit of ribbon, just one of the images, and you get 2 pages of those images, and a couple of stamps, and that was it. All right, any questions from anyone? So you're all ready to get out there and cut up that piece of DSP that is beautiful, but I know y'all, you were scratching your heads going, now how the heck am I going to use this, right? Don't be afraid to break out your layering ovals, or I even did one with the layering square, which I think will be pretty as well on a card. You could angle it. Oh, that's kind of pretty. Or put it anywhere you like on the card. So don't be afraid to get out there and cut that piece up, because that's the only way that you'll actually use it. All right, let's see if I have any other comments here before I let you guys go. I know this was a short one, but I figured we could just do something fun and fast. Hi, Karen. Jean, you want me to tell my Winnie story? Which story is that? Oh, Roz, your dogs are barking with Winnie. Oh my gosh. Did it set them off, or were they already barking? Tell you, she hears a dog bark on the TV, and that's all she wrote. Hi, Amy. Jean, it took you an hour to register. Wow. Hi, Ann. Hello, Beth. Oh my gosh, a bunch of you joined, and I was just whizzing right along and didn't even say hi to y'all. Oh, Jean, you want me to tell the story of why it's called Cards by Winnie when my name is Linda? It is kind of a cute story. I wanted to do a name, obviously, that had something to do with crafting or with cards, and I figured cards was probably what I was going to be doing the most of. But I went in and Googled Cards by Linda, and it was taken. And so then I kind of fell back on my old standbys. I look up my granddaughter's names, but Cards by Vivian, Cards by Lily, Cards by Claire was even taken. And so I'm sitting there just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And Winnie walks over, and this is no lie, you guys, and she puts her paw on my leg and looks up at me as if to say, well, you didn't Google Cards by Winnie. So I did, and sure enough, it hadn't been taken. So that's how Cards by Winnie was born. But yes, for those of you who may have been calling me Winnie all along, that's just great. I love that name, and I will definitely answer to it. All right, well, I left you with a little bit of a chuckle, so we'll stop it here, and I will pick it up on Saturday. I'm trying to think of a neat 3D project maybe that we can do, but if you guys have any suggestions, please leave me a comment below, because I just love it when you guys do that. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Any of you that are still trying to register, I know you're going to get in. All right. Have a great evening, y'all. Bye-bye.